Science with Mrs. Evans. So we're in my kitchen, a bit like my science lab, and today we're going to be mixing a few different mixtures together made of different materials. We're going to make some predictions and some observations around what happens when we join those materials together. So I want you to pay attention. I'm going to put some things up on the screen, but start to think about the vocabulary that we use when we combine mixtures. So a mixture, remember, is just where two or more materials are joined together. It can be liquids, it can be solids. It doesn't have to be the same, and they create a new mixture, but essentially their properties don't change. They are what they are. It's different because it doesn't cause a chemical reaction. So unlike sort of bicarb and vinegar, and that's an example I've used for you before, when you combine the two, they actually make something else. They make carbon dioxide. So in other words, they have a chemical reaction. That's not a mixture, all right? But if it's two materials combined together, say when you're making a cake, mixtures of the flour and the salt and the eggs and the water, and you put all that together, that is a mixture. All right, but let's see what sort of mixtures we're going to explore today. So you can see on the front here I have my mixing bowl, because all good mixtures are best done in a mixing bowl where we can make sure nothing sort of spills or goes anywhere. And I have my mixing spoon. I have some ingredients I'm going to talk to in a moment. What I want you to think about is we're going to make some predictions about what happens when we mix certain ingredients. Now, the first one we're going to mix are these materials or ingredients: flour, salt. Now, I've taken the lid off my salt just to make it easy for me to pour, and this ingredient or material called cream of tartar. If you've never heard of it, it's something that you put into bread and pavlova, and you add it to the flour, and what it does, it's called a stabilizer, and what it does is actually makes your flour hold really well when you cook, so that if you make, for example, if you make a bread and it rises and it's nice and fluffy, it's not going to just sink. And the same for cakes and pavlovas. Imagine making a beautiful pavlova, or mum makes one, or grandma makes one, or even dad, and it gets really nice and rises and it's all fluffy and it looks beautiful, and then it just sinks. So this kind of stuff, this is like magic, and it helps stabilize the item that you're making. So it's an ingredient that we use to hold structure. So cream of tartar. So I'm going to mix flour, salt, and cream of tartar together, and I wonder if you can tell me what would happen. What do you think will happen when these ingredients are mixed? All right. So mixing our flour and our salt, I'm going to mix 2 cups of flour. And all good scientists need to measure things. I can't find my cup measure, so I found my half a cup. And I know that 2 halves make a whole. So if I use a half a cup and another half a cup, I know I'm going to get a whole cup. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my measuring cup in, and I'm going to scrape the sides so that it's nice and level. That's 1 cup. And my next cup, again, I'll just show you how I just scrape the side back into the packet. There's my 2nd cup. So I think 2 cups of plain flour will do. And I just wonder what will happen when I add my salt and my cream of tartar. So my salt, I also need to add half a cup. So here's my half a cup of salt, a little bit more. So we want to make sure that it's nice and level. There's my level cup. Half a cup of salt. And I also want to add, it says 2 tablespoons of cream of tartar. So here's my cream of tartar. See how it looks a bit like flour? A bit like corn flour, really. Similar. And there's 1 tablespoon. And I'll fill up the other one. There's my other tablespoon. But it's not a mixture unless you mix it. Mix and mix and mix and mix. Can you see all my mixture is starting to combine, and all the flour and the cream of tartar and the salt are all starting to evenly spread throughout the mixture. But I know it's a mixture because I know that it's in there. It's just flour and salt and cream of tartar. I haven't really made anything new. It's just a mixture. Were you right in your observations? Now, I wonder then what will happen if instead of this, we mix flour and water together. So to do that, I'm going to grab a clear bowl. And my mixing bowl's a bit busy. And I'm going to scoop in 2 tablespoons of flour, just on its own. And I'm going to pour some water in. I wonder what's going to happen when we mix them. Oh, can you see that? It's a little bit sludgy and gludgy, and you notice that some of it's still dry as the flour absorbs the water and they mix together. See what's starting to happen? It's almost forming, it is forming a dough. Have a look at this. Mix a little bit more water. Mix, 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 mix. And mix, 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 mix. Oh, look at that. We've created a dough, a sludgy dough. And I'm sure if I kept mixing that and kneading that, it would turn into a really fun dough to work with. Our last experiment involves oil. So remember, we have our cup, and in fact, I can use my Pyrex cup. And in my Pyrex, I'm going to pour some oil. I need to pour about 2 tablespoons of oil. So I'm going to get myself a new tablespoon. You hear me walking around my kitchen. I have lots of things in my kitchen. And so here is my new tablespoon, and here is my oil. In fact, I'm going to top up my water so that you can see. Oh, there we go. There's lots more water. You can see my water. And I'm going to add my tablespoons of oil. What's going to happen here? 1 tablespoon. Ooh. Not sure if you can see that. Let's have a look up close. The oil, and I'm going to get close to the camera for this one, boys and girls, because this is really important to see. The oil is separate from the water. The oil's sitting all the way up the top here, but the water's all underneath. They're not really mixing together, are they? So what happens if I mix food colouring into there? Let's get a bright food colouring, shall we? A bright red. Here we go. Oh, it's a food colouring. Oh, wow. Can you see what's happening? The food colouring is staying with the oil, and then it starts to come through the oil, and it looks like, almost looks like it's raining as it comes down. But then when I mix it, mix and mix and mix and mix and mix, it all starts to mix together, but the oil will always come back to the top. So even though the colour's all mixed, the oil makes its way back to the top every single time. Well, those were the 3 parts of my predictions, but I'm a scientist. I love to explore different ideas, and I wonder what's going to happen if I was to mix the flour, the salt, the cream of tartar, the water, the oil, and the food colouring all together. What am I going to make? So here's all my flour. I have my 2 cups of boiling water here, and my cream of tartar's in here, and my salt. And let's see what happens when we start to mix everything together. Here we go. Mix, mix, mix. And gradually mix. It's changing colour, isn't it? Do a little bit at a time. So sometimes with mixtures, you want to start with a little bit of liquid. Let's mix. Once that's all mixed in, then you add more. And mix, 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 mix. Some more in there, not too much more. So you judge, if you're doing this at home as well, just how much you need to add. Mix it all up. Mix and mix and mix. Oh, lots and lots here. And in fact, I'm going to add probably a little bit more flour because I've gone a bit too much liquid. Just like in cooking, sometimes you've got to change it. And then, you see what we've made. And a little bit more flour just to dry it up a bit. Mix and mix and mix. If anyone's doing this at home, just adjust your measures. So if you feel like it's getting a bit too damp or too wet, then you can just leave it in there and add some more flour. If it's getting too dry, add some more liquid. But in the end, mix it all up, and I'm going to squish it and knead it. You see what I'm doing? I wonder what I've made. If you've guessed Play-Doh, you are correct. Well done. Wow, can you believe when we combine our 3 mixtures together, we got Play-Doh? So fantastic. I'm really proud of all of our scientists who might have had a go at that at home. And if you haven't yet, see if mum or dad have the ingredients in the cupboard and give it a shot because it's such fun. And then you can play with the Play-Doh. It lasts a few weeks. Always keep it in a Ziploc bag or some cling wrap or even a container just to keep the air off it so it doesn't dry out. But enjoy the experiment, and I can't wait to see your responses in our observations. Bye! Thanks for joining us on Science with Mrs. Evans. See you next time.